Hey, beautiful human. Welcome to episode 7 of From Chaos to Cozy, where we're on an amazing journey gaining clarity around our chaos and how to see our cozy more clearly. In the last episode, we continued on the theme of our relationships with humans and the impact that those intimate relationships can have on us, especially when someone does not honor commitments. And in this episode, we're going to continue on our journey looking at common themes that impact us in our interactions with humans as we talk about the power of choice and how individuals tend to respond to their feelings of low self-worth when we're interacting with them. The power of choice. So life really is very simple, but the human side of us tends to complicate things, right? Every moment is always a simple choice between either unconditional love or the fear of losing conditional love. And we make 4 choices in each moment. 1, mental choices of the story that we apply to the moment with our thoughts. The second is emotional choices of how we choose to feel. The third is manifesting or spiritual energy choices of what we focus on, growing and drawing what we focus on. And 4, physical energy choices that we express outwardly through our actions. And it may not seem we're choosing in each moment because of how we've formed reactions through habit. But if we could slow down time, we would be able to see the split second the decisions are made. We are filled with popular opinions from when we're very young. You know, the supposed to, the should, the need to, the have to, the ought to, the musts. And we hear and read them from our family, our friends, our tribe, our pack, society, school, religious leaders, political leaders, books, movies, and more. Oh my. We don't know about the power of choice back then, so we just take whatever anyone says as truth and bring it into our subconscious as our own opinion as well, even though some can be contradictory to each other. And we do this out of fear because as children, we can be in danger of being rejected by our pack and die in the wilderness alone. Not many of us are as lucky as Tarzan, who was rescued by apes, or those movies where someone's raised by wolves instead of being eaten by them. So those opinions get reinforced over and over and over again via our interactions with the outside world until they become our habit of thinking and feeling and focusing and acting based on those opinions, to the point where through this repetition over and over again, it now becomes our reaction. The choices and decisions happen so fast that it doesn't even feel like we're making a choice. So how do I change my habit then? Well, becoming aware of the power of choice is one of the big, huge steps. And without that, we think we're stuck and trapped into believing what we've been told growing up, choosing the lower vibrational energies that are rooted to fear. You know, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of losing conditional love, fear of death, fear of being alone. So how do we change that habit of choosing fear to something else? Stepping out of fear is important, and we can do that more easily when we're breathing deeply. I'm no medical expert, but I've read that flooding the body with oxygen helps it flush out the adrenaline and other chemicals flowing through our bodies and that have kept us looping in that fight or flight mode. Other things that can help us step out of fear is gratitude, joy and laughter, dancing, meditation, and of course you know yourself better than anyone else, so you know what works best to bring you out of fear and into peace. You also know what works and does not work in helping you change habits. If you have something that has worked before in the past, by all means do that. And something that works well for me is using my cell phone as a reminder. I set a silent vibrating alarm so that I don't irritate anyone around me. And I set the timing to depend on how fast I want to change the habit. Every half hour or hour, for each waking hour is a very positive way to make the change of habit. And I found that I would be drawn back into the world of fear after a few minutes in the beginning. Then my alarm would go off and I would look at it and remember, oh yeah, gratitude or breathe or joy, whatever it was that I was trying to focus on to move out of fear and change a habit. And then once I was remaining in peace enough where I could clearly look at my thoughts and beliefs, my emotions, my energy and action, I would take the time to question these and find out why I believed what I believed and if I wanted to continue to believe them. And as we connect more to the capital T truth of the higher realms, we begin to clearly see the lies that the small t truth of the human are, which are based on those fears of losing a conditional love. Our inner child wants to feel safe and in control, so change and uncertainty makes it freak out and throws us into fight or flight mode. Usually if we're confused, chances are we're in fear. And when we're in peace, that's when we can clearly question. We can recognize which we are in, and then we can proceed. If you're unsure of what to question, how to look at things differently, what the capital T truth is, never be afraid to ask of Spirit. They're always so ready to assist us along in our adventure without judgment and without condition. But they also do honor our power of choice. Before we come down to this lifetime, our soul provides our spiritual support team a honey-do list asking them to arrange certain fated things to happen in our lives. And there are usually not a ton of these things, so they have a lot of extra time on their hands if they believed in time. A lot of this lifetime is about possibilities, and possibilities are created through various choices. If we are unsure of what choice to make, then that usually means we don't have all the information that we're needing or clarity to make a decision. So that's a perfect time to ask of Spirit for their point of view. After all, they are the know-it-alls, the eye in the sky, seeing the giant maze that we're in from a higher place. So when we are at a crossroads where we need to turn left or right, we can ask them and they will give us guidance. When we're in fear, we are in the noisy, chaotic, lower vibrational energy, and it's very hard to hear the whispers of Spirit through all that loud racket. Spirit speaks at a higher vibrational level, of course, that of unconditional love and joy, peace, laughter, and gratitude. The more higher our frequency, the more clearly we can hear from Spirit. And that is one of the huge reasons to transform our energy and beliefs alone. But also I tend to tip more towards focusing as much energy as we can on seeking unconditional love and the higher knowledge, thoughts, emotions, energy, and action, more than focusing on the lower vibrational things. Because if we focus a ton of time on our shadow, then it grows those shadowy things. So we can use some sort of 80-20 rule, maybe, where we focus 80% of our time on the higher and 20% on the shadow work. Spirit can help us with that too. We can sit still in peace and ask them to bring forward what is best for us to transform at this point in our lives. And then we sit and wait, and then it does come to us. Also, our little inner child will help out, who is actually part of our shadow. It's like a little toddler who's trying to get our attention, tugging on our sleeve, saying, hey, 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 don't you forget about me, like that song, right? And they will show us what trigger they would like us to review so we can take away the charged emotion from the widowed hands. So let's talk a little bit about how to question those 4 different areas of our choices. So questioning thought, we'll look at that first. And as I mentioned, we're given a ton of thoughts and opinions and beliefs from others as we grow up. And at some point in our life, the fear of being rejected and not being cared for outweighs the uncomfortable feelings of shrinking oneself, feeling limited, restricted, trapped, blinded, and bound. It is then that we begin to look inward and upward for higher truth, which sheds light on the lies that the small t truths of humanity are. These rules and beliefs of humans that are rooted in fear of rejection may have started out innocently, trying to have us all get along together as we grew in numbers and lived in close quarters. But the small inner children who wanted to feel in control took over in a lot of ways, creating rules that kept them in control while trying to take control from others away. The approach to questioning a thought can be like an approach to see what story am I applying to that moment or this moment. An example can be termination from a job. So a popular story is, that's devastating, embarrassing, you're a loser, you're not going to find work again, and you're going to die of starvation on the edge of town and be eaten by wolves because no one will love you and care about you now. Is it the story you currently believe? Do you still want to believe that story? What other story would you prefer to believe? And is it a story that's more higher vibrational? Like maybe the job was a toxic personal relationship with that business that you feared leaving because you didn't think you could do any better, and it's what you deserved. Perhaps now that they've broken up with you, a new job or career opens up for you, something more in alignment with your higher heart. Do we believe that things happen to us or for us? And when we step into the higher vibration that everything unfolds in life is for us, then we can trust that whatever happened or is happening is for us, so we can recalibrate the story. And you might resonate with astrology that indicates a huge time of questioning our beliefs and our belief systems that we were given by our family and culture is a period called a Saturn return. And these are the periods when Saturn returns to the same location as it was at our birth. It takes around 28 to 29 Earth years for Saturn to make its complete orbit around the Sun, so we experience these Saturn returns at their climax around the first one around 28 to 29, and then 56 to 57, and then 84 to 85, and etc. And because Saturn is an outer planet, 6th from the Sun, its planetary energies can impact us anywhere around 5 years before and after any aspect that it has to the Earth. And that means our first Saturn return can impact us anywhere from 23 years old to 34 years of age. And in this first return, we experience the challenges to our beliefs to ourselves personally. Our second return, however, that can impact us from ages 51 to 62. But this return, we experience the challenges of our belief systems by watching other people and seeing the impacts in their lives. We don't go through it ourselves, we watch them. And whatever we did not look at in our first return, that's what returns back for the second go. And then our third Saturn return, anywhere between the ages of 79 and 90. And for any returns here and after, if we live that long, we take on a role more like a teacher for others regarding questioning their own challenges in their own lives. And as you can see, we are ignited to review our thought processes and beliefs by the stars. And life experience also will wear on us as reality fights against those thoughts and beliefs and wins. The disappointment and letdowns make us rethink the situation and wonder what is wrong with this picture. We'll chat about more tools in future episodes around inquiry of thought as well. All right, let's talk about questioning emotions. So questioning thought is one thing, but to transform emotions, we must do that with our heart, not with our head. And where small t truths rooted in fear are transformed by capital T truths rooted in unconditional love, the transformation of emotion is also tied to unconditional love. We arrive into our humanity with a soul hunger that seeks unconditional love. However, all we find in the outside world is mostly conditional love, unless you happen upon an enlightened master, but they usually aren't looking for a relationship. Like fear-based thoughts, eventually we also grow tired, bored, disappointed with the temporary, unfulfilling conditional love we find in the outside world. We turn inward and upward to find the chalice within that can be filled with the eternal, unconditional love from above. That love is really the answer to every question, every quest, every true desire. Yet, we're taught to look outside of ourselves for that love that's not available out there. Now, our emotional inner child is what develops first, from 7 years old and younger, and our inner mental child develops 7 to 14. So as our inner child experiences emotions, it will normally react with laughter, crying, or angry tantrum. And it is usually encouraged to laugh, but deterred to cry or throw a tantrum, right? In those situations where it's wanting to cry or tantrum size it, since it doesn't know any other way to express and allow the emotional to flow, it will store those charged emotions down in the subconscious. It will continue to charge our lives and echo out into our lives until we bring it up from the subconscious to transform it. One form of transformation is understanding in our heart that every moment is either of fear of losing conditional love or unconditional love. And when we bring one of those charged emotions into our consciousness, looking at it from a distance, kind of like a tour bus driving through Universal Studios, seeing the scenes as being out there rather than re-experiencing the event all over again. And when we realize that if the event had actions that were not of unconditional love, then we know they were of fear. And when our little inner child feels unsafe or out of control, it will disconnect the connection to the intelligent, loving, compassionate adult side of us because it doesn't want it to interrupt our reactionary fight or flight survival mode. So the human or humans involved in the situation were acting out of survival, and it had little to do with us personally. If we can step out of our own initial reaction and see it as a third person, the event can transform as we see the others panic and their fear, doing whatever their little 2-year-old self felt it needed to do in order to feel safe and in control again. We start to see the other person a little differently, the situation differently, and ourselves differently as well. The emotional charge lessens and can even release. When I was in the corporate world and customer service, I was blessed to be able to coach and manage an escalated call line, where over time I noticed a trend in how most humans dealt with fear and stress. And there were like 5 categories. We've got like the destroyer, the boaster, the sad bully, the jester, and the mime. So let's review them briefly so you might be able to identify these creatures in the wild. So the destroyer, humans tend to be raised in ways that result in many having a lower self-esteem, at least earlier in our lives, right? And because destroyers feel lower than others, they will act and speak out to try to lower the other person down to where they feel they are at. So they feel everyone else is above them, so they will try to destroy them to bring them down to their level. A boaster comes from the kind of the same intention, but instead they will try to boast themselves up to where they feel others are at. And they don't really believe they're boasting, or they wouldn't feel the need to boast. You know what I mean? People who are confident don't have to go around talking about their greatness. Some will use both destroying and boasting to try to bring themselves up while bringing other people down to meet somewhere in the middle. And of course, when people do that to us, we might feel lower than them already, and we'll feel like they're trying to push us even lower. And that's usually what happens, right? So let's the battle begin. Now, the sad bully, they might use the tools of the destroyer and the boaster, but they try to use their manipulation tactics as an extreme level to get what they want from others. And it can start off as the sadsies, where they act sad or cry to get the other person to feel bad and get them to do what they want them to. And if that doesn't work, then they escalate to stage 2 of the bully, where they throw things around, get angry, even to the point sometimes of physical harm, to get to someone to cave and submit to their will. And then if that doesn't work, then they move to the 3rd stage, which is rejecting others. Walking out of the room, hanging up, ghosting someone, giving them the cold shoulder, withholding intimacy, those things that most humans fear. And if that all doesn't work, they will start all over at stage 1, voicing their sadness over them not pursuing them after they rejected them, Does any of that sound familiar? It's normal in human culture. And then the jester, this is one who hides their fears and uncomfortability in humor. And this individual is the clown to the extreme, the one who you'd feel like saying to them, "Why can't you ever be serious?" Behind all that clown makeup, though, of laughter and jesting, is a little fearful child trying to stay safe and in control. And lastly, we have the mime. And this is someone who is timid and shy and to themselves, again, to an extreme degree. They hardly speak up in groups, holding everything inside, till one day they have an outburst where they just can't hold it in any longer, much to the surprise of everyone around them, because it is so unlike them. Now, all of these can be flags for you to notice when someone else is in fear. It can also allow more gentleness towards them, or yourself if you recognize yourself reacting in any of those ways. And that is what it is, reacting. A reaction is an emotional response where we might not recognize it as happening until after it has happened. When we've calmed down and come out of fear, we can sometimes recognize it afterwards. A response, so that's a reaction. A response is an emotionally intelligent response where we're purposely choosing a higher vibrational emotion or action. And yes, we can eventually have a reaction of higher vibrational energy once it becomes our habit instead of choosing lower vibrations. We are emotional beings who have a human mental experience. The first thing that forms in humans is the emotional part of our brain, our emotional center. And then our brain develops around 7 years old, all the way up to around 14, when puberty hits and we begin to develop more physically from 14 to 21. In emotions, they override the mind. So we will spend a lot of this podcast series talking about emotions, as well as those thoughts and stories. After all, emotions are flags that something can be looked at inside of us. And in the next episode, we'll continue looking into the power of choice about questions around our energy and questions around our physical actions. We'll also look into additional ways that we can identify when we're in fear, because when we're in fear, we're a mess and we do stupid stuff. So good information to know. So until next time, remember every second of every moment of our lives that we are eternally and unconditionally loved by the Mother and Father of all things, our Creator. And of course, I love you too. So hang in there, take care of you, and we'll see you soon.